Welcome to today's episode, and today is really exciting because let me ask you this. How would you and your business be impacted if you had a step-by-step plan that you could use to be able to go out there and raise capital on your own? And also without spending it on expensive brokers, consultants, attorneys, or bankers. And what if you got a chance to learn from somebody who's raised hundreds of millions of dollars, not only in his own funding process, but also showing other companies and having experience being able to do just that? Well, if so, you're going to love today's interview, this session, this episode. So I'd grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, jot down some notes, because if you've ever wanted to know some of the insider secrets of how to get funding to grow your business, whether it's to prepare to sell, to be acquired, to go public, we're working and talking to one of the leading experts in the world. His name is Greg Downey, and he's got over 25 years of experience doing just this. In fact, he's helped build companies, launch companies, brands, Fortune 100, venture-backed companies, startup companies, maybe like yours. He's got experience and expertise in sales, marketing, branding, business development, commercialization, strategy, and investor relations. Right? And how to be able to pull all of this together to make your company far more valuable, far more sexy, far more appealing to people who might want to acquire it, buy it, invest in it, and a whole lot more. In fact, he's worked with healthcare companies like Tyco. He's worked with companies in the medical industry, orthopedic industry. So broad and diverse, having done this for 25 years. I mean, I don't want to leave anything out, but long and the short of it, brother, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, man. I appreciate it. I need to cut down my bio, but I appreciate the flattering and warm introduction.
You're welcome. I want to dive right into it. Now, most of us have a reason why we're doing, there's a backstory to it. So why are you so compelled to be able to work in this process of helping people raise money, help raise capital, set the stage to either get acquired, go public, or otherwise?
Yeah, I guess it goes to kind of my own experience, right? It's the things that I ran up against early in my career. I was blessed to start off in medical sales. So I started with a startup division within Johnson & Johnson's surgical division, which is an Ethicon company. And so I got to see how startups started, right? But it was totally I would say, maybe misleading a way to do a startup, because you don't usually get a Fortune 100 name and $40 million in cool technology from Stanford. So anyway, but that kind of opened the door for seeing how companies were launched. So that was really intriguing. But then when I went off on my own and started doing the entrepreneurial thing, putting the business together, trying to find investors, going to talk to investors, getting shredded in the process of going, what did I miss? Right. And then what they want to see is you get back up, polish yourself off, and go back at it again. But I never really had a mentor, so to speak. It's just I got little sound bites, and I was blessed to be around some really seasoned executives, but I never really had a consistent time period where I had experts around me helping me. So spent a lot of time in airports, on planes, going to the JP Morgan conference in San Francisco, which was really a waste of time for early stage type companies. But it was really just the passion of how are businesses built, how do they come together, and then also knowing that the true wealth comes from the top, right? So if you can help build these things and be a part of it, you can do it. But also knowing the perils of startups, they're not easy. You've got to kind of carry a lot of weight, wear a bunch of different hats. So it's going, well, we as a firm figured out is if we can come around the entrepreneur, whether it's a physician, a PhD, or someone that's had businesses before, or even it's the first time business, putting the teams around them to help walk them through this process so they can stay good at what they're at, and we can be really good at what we're doing, and then we all win together. So that's a little bit of a hybrid of what got me excited about doing early stage companies. And I just never look back. When companies get big, and I've been a part of them, we've grown them to quite a few employees, I start to get the itch and want to look for the door and do something else. So it's just being in the chaos of early stage companies is you learn a lot. And it could be a lot of fun, and it takes I think a certain caliber of individual to weather it. So that's the type of people we like to hang with.
And you've got a unique process where you help the founders or creators of these call it emerging companies, fast growth companies who really want to raise money and get funding one way or another, right? With a step-by-step process in this. without, the expensive broker fees or, consultants or these high priced bankers and so on. Before we get into some of the strategies, Greg, like, maybe in your journey of doing this, again, 25 years, that's a quite a bit of audio work. Like, what was, a mistake that you learned from that you help a lot of your potential clients avoid too? I'm just curious.
It's really probably saying too much too soon, right? It's just burying the investor or the potential investor or even strategic partner with everything, right? I work with a lot of engineers and really, really smart people. So I think when you're so close to your own deal, it's just natural if you want to, where all the bits and bytes and pieces are, right? So you want to share that. And it's nice to have passion and excitement, but you're also going to overwhelm someone. And so over the years of everything that we've done and everything I've done, I've been on the entrepreneur side, I've been on the investor side. It's just know what to say, how to package it, what investors need to see versus what you think they need to see. It's a lot. You got to pull yourself out of the emotion and go at that 30,000 foot view, but making sure you're answering their questions quickly, precisely. And, again, we have a very short attention span nowadays. So you got to get to the point. So I had gone through those iterations before, been involved in high tech. So it's very easy to bring your engineers in and you explain stuff for 20 minutes and people have no idea what you're talking about. So you got to get to the point and really distill it down. And raising money it's half art, half science. There's a lot of strategy behind it. It's not just, hey, how much money can I make if I put money into your company? The whole psychological, this, you're an entrepreneur. It's like there's a psychological dance that takes place where you're being evaluated every step of the way. So it's just, again, knowing that and then knowing what works and also most importantly, knowing what doesn't work. And there's a lot of those.
Yeah. It's like the difference, we can fire hose somebody, give them too much too fast. Or, we can also assume, oh, well, here's a cup of water. Well, I don't want water. I want flavored water. Well, what flavor, right? So it's, having, over $100 million in capital funding raised with thousands of different, situations and experiences, you learn a lot from that of like, well, first, you got to find out what flavor they want. Number two, then you identify what exactly they want. Do they want a teaspoon? Do they want a cup? Right? Do they want a bucket? Like how thirsty are they? And you go step by step, et cetera. So with that, I mean, Purim Venture Capital, which is what you built, and Purim Ventures, which helps companies with this step-by-step process, right? What makes you different than, some of the other capital equity building firms, funding raising firms out there? I'm curious what you would say.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I look at it as going, we're a little bit of an interesting hybrid, right? You have venture capital, and then you have this new entity, kind of a sexiness, which is the venture studio, which is venture capital, but hands-on, right? We're more on that side of the house. I think where we're different is that, and this is kind of going back to, you start your companies to try to solve a problem, usually a problem that you've been through, right? So it's going, one, if someone would have walked me through this process, the entire, and really got into my stuff, and I would have been much better off, in the long run and getting there faster, right? So with what we put together, we have the venture side. We've been doing commercialization, product launches. We do turnarounds. We do due diligence for private equity and venture capital and family offices. That's what we've been doing since 2010 when we launched Purim. What we've been doing over the last really 18 months was this process that we utilize where venture capital will do due diligence, and then they'll either go yes or no, or, hey, it's not a good fit, or come back when you have revenue, and then we'll invest in your next round. I've heard that I don't know how many times, and have clients, we've been there, right? And it's going, well, I don't need you then, I need you now. Like, right. And I sat on angel groups. We helped grow an angel group in the Midwest to multiple cities. And I just got frustrated because you're sitting in the audience, and we're on the screening committee, and you see these guys put all their heart and soul into their business and they finally get to pitch you. And then they leave the room, and then we discuss it. And you're going, I heard a lot of people, investors go, it's really cool, but they're missing this piece and this piece. I'm out. And you're like, but you're an expert in their industry. Like, why don't you help them with the missing pieces? Oh no, I'm retired. I'm going to go golf. And we're going, well, if we can go in and fix them and help them, we're going to show value, and we'll actually be doing better due diligence. and we'll understand how the engine works and we'll create a relationship. And then it's a much better investment. And so we've deployed that philosophy for, again, over 10 years now. And our returns are 20 to 30 times for clients within about 12 to 18 months. So they're paying us to come and fix stuff. What they're seeing back either through capital or through a strategic partnership or a product launch or an acquisition or a license is 20 to 30 times. Some are much, much larger, but it's going, how do we add value? And so with what we've kind of opened up to a select group of folks, we have this very strict screening process, but companies that we may or may not invest in, again, you don't know until you do due diligence, but we've got this down to a pretty good science, to a systematic process, to where we tested it about 18 months ago of just mentoring and helping people and showing them what we do and doing due diligence with them. We get into their systems, we get into their data room, we look through all their documents, and we find, you like what you do, you find holes, right? You go, we can fix this, we can make this better. You're missing this component. And so we bring all that value together. And at that point, you're comfortable introducing them to your investors, right? Not before then. And so where most VCs just due diligence and pass, we look at it going, look, is the team solid? Like teams first all the time. Technology second. Never get them flipped around, right? You'll get hurt. So if we get to operate with the individual and see what's going on and they're coachable and there's good camaraderie and we do this over a 90-day process, then we're in a much better spot to help them raise capital, to introduce them to our network. We can do those things. So it's really, I think, a different component that most firms don't have because they focus on bigger things. And there's this gap that we see between the angel investor or the accelerator university level or in the angel group to VC. And that's where we sit. And we're really able to accelerate companies, very, very quickly. But it's all about team and people at the end of the day.
And, so it sounds like not only do you assess the business, but you help accelerate the business by adding value, build value, and now it makes it more valuable so that they can get more funding, whereas before they would be getting probably a hard no or having to, pay all kinds of, very expensive broker fees, et cetera, like you mentioned, almost like, you can look at it like you're getting advice or just counsel, right? Mm-hmm. Or you're getting counsel and you're getting the systems to grow because you've got the experience by getting the engine that you're accelerating, right? So it sounds like you're bridging the gap of those couple things, Greg. So I know you've worked with, so many different, types of businesses, types of industries, et cetera. Like what's an example, maybe someone might be watching right now or listening right now and they're like, well, this kind of makes sense. What's a story you could share of someone that maybe they could identify or connect to where they came in, where they had an issue, they were struck, maybe they tried other things and then came into your world, you helped them, and like what happened?
I get two that I could tell you that are pretty recent. So one was even a little outside of our realm. It was in a service-based business. This was an entrepreneur, kind of street taught, learned it on his own in this particular service industry, made good money, and then had to shut things down and had some issues and had to kind of recircle the wagons and build back up, right? Was not good at PowerPoint, couldn't put together a pro forma, but literally made millions in the past. So he did it because he was just a hustler. Is very determined and driven. So when he came into the program, we started working with him. And so we helped him put all the materials together. That's one thing that we do is we work alongside you through masterminds, one-on-ones. We provide, legal documents. We do red lines. We have create a data room. We do all this stuff that you're going to need for an investor anyways. But that's how we operate. Literally within about 30 days, we had figured out his business. We got it down to a pitch deck and got his financials figured out. And if you've ever pitched to an investor before for the first time, it's not fun. So it's a lot of nerve wracking. And so we had an investor bite. He wanted to meet on a weekend. And he's like, well, can you help me? Can you pitch for me? So we pitched with him, and we don't do that for everybody, but we ended up becoming an equity partner in the company. But he got his investor closed within 24 hours after seeing it. And one of his big takeaways was we answered every single question in the period of 20 minutes. And this guy was just blown away. And so now his business is financed. He's off and running. He's generating revenue. And his business is going to be way bigger and badder in a good way in the next couple of years. I mean, even shorter than that. So there's one. There's another one that I'll share with you. It's on the med tech side. So this gentleman was referred to us by actually a friend of mine, a business partner in an orthopedics company. But he met a gentleman that wanted to pitch his group, his investment group, and he was just too early. His stuff wasn't together, but he had a passion. It was to help children and adults on feeding tubes, to be more mobile, right? Noble cause. And when we got to see it, he started to file, he had IP, so intellectual property, had a prototype, had done some, and he's an inventor. So he had done some groundwork, got some feedback, some early testimonials. And then we got involved, helped him put all the investment stuff together, the data room, pitch deck. So it's really dialed in, it's tight. And we helped him with the pro forma and the financials and the valuation. He met with an investor, I think last week, who said, I can take the whole thing, right? So he's super excited. But in that situation, he needed pricing on the manufacturing, right? How do you build the widget, right? Distribution was also important. And then subject matter experts. And so through our network and, by God's grace and the people we've been able to work with over the years, what happened is we put him in touch with a manufacturer that we're friends with. That's in 170 VA hospitals. So they have manufacturing and distribution in the VA. They're quoted the project. They're going to be the manufacturer of record. They got all the quality systems. They can take care of all that stuff, plus get into the largest hospital system in the United States. And then we put in, the former chief medical officer of my previous company. We helped grow. It's a public company now, but he was head of all 22 Shriner hospitals. He's now working as an advisor to them. Former head of Anthem for one of the, for Michigan is now advising, right? So we were able to surround him with the experts that he needs to have because of his niche. And it blew his mind. And it's also one of the things that investors want to see. They want to see traction. They want to see the manufacturing. They want to see the advisors. They want to see the buy-in. They want to see all these things. And so through the process of working with him, he brings a lot to the table. We brought as much as we could to the table. And at the end of the day, you have extremely happy, clients. And that's the goal. We go all in. We don't go, hey, you only paid for this, so we're going to give you this, right? We have to find a common ground to start. And then it's all about raising capital. That's the focus, but it's all about business development, strategy, execution. We look at every aspect of the business. And if we can add value in other areas, we will. And that has allowed us to create so much value in some of these companies that they want to keep us going forward, even after the mastermind engagement. And we're picking up equities. We're essentially built a fund backwards. So again, it's a lot like what you're doing. You add a ton of value into clients, and they become friends, they become partners, and everybody wins.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating to think about in the journey. Like I've been on, lots of our clients have been on. That you can choose. To kind of try to, let's take the business side out of it or any sophistication and just look at a house. Like if you're going to sell a house, right? What do you do? Well, how do you increase value when you're going to show it? Well, you might put new paint on it, you dress it up, you stage it, right? And the problem is most amateurs go at this, and they're dealing with professional investors. In other words, getting funding is and what do investors want? They want to minimize their risk and they want to maximize their ROI. That's what a professional investor does in a simple sense, right? And what you're doing is not just doing what most advisors would do, which is, set the state in, yes or no, based on the valuation. You're helping build the links along the chain, again, to increase the value in sales and marketing and branding and systems and, team and advisors and the network effect that can play a significant role to make it more attractive. So now you've staged the house to make it more valuable for the possibility of a professional investor to say yes. And I find it so simple, and yet like you're one of the only ones in the world doing it this way and not available the way you do it anywhere else in the world. I would say, and I'm a little biased to that, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but like, as you've experienced this and now it's evolved and you're working with so many fun industries and niches and people, like, what do you see are some of the common mistakes, Greg, that most people make when they're trying to do funding and get professional investors to buy in?
Keeping it simple. It's knowing that you have to, it's not over just because somebody says I'm interested in your company, right? There's some key elements, right? Having a sober valuation, knowing what your value is, scientifically, mathematically, and be able to point to it. And I tell clients, like, don't lead with your valuation going, we're a $10 million company, but we have zero revenue, right? Say, right. Just be able to defend it, right? At the end of the day, it's negotiations. When they're already interested, that's when valuation comes into play, right? And that's when they really start to get into it. I see people lead with a ridiculous valuation, or they think they need $50 million to accomplish their goal. But when you dig into the financials and you really dig into the strategy, sometimes they don't have a strategy of what are you doing 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, 12 months out. How do you create that value, those inflection points, so you can defend your valuation? But I see people not really looking at, if it was your own money you're putting in this thing, or you met a stranger who says, I'm going to put money in this thing, you've got to be able to provide, where is the money going and how are you going to get there, right? So we work with a lot of clients, and a lot of them are going, well, I need $5, $10, $15 million. And we're going, no. What do you need for 18 months? And what can you do with 18 months? That's your focus, right? Yeah, the 5-year, but that's a dart in the wind, right? Like, right. That's your best guess on a good day. So it's really looking at those 18 months and that detail of showing how you're going to get it done, and just being professional. It's just knowing that you need that capital, and hopefully it's smart capital and it's strategic capital, so they help you get there. Some people look at investors as, they're going to take over my company. It's like, well, if you do the modeling correctly and you present it the right way and you do the right structuring, you're not going to lose control. You're actually inheriting a partner, a value add, right? And I've worked, unfortunately, with some really cool technologies where the CEO or the founder had this, it's all about me, right? And we do this in founderitis, right? It's like, it's all about them. It's all about their fictitious valuation, and everybody else be damned. And you're like, you may raise some money from some naive people, but you're not going to go far. It's a team effort. And so it's knowing what you're good at, sticking to what you're good at, identifying where your weak spots are, and then surrounding yourself with smarter people that can fill in those weak spots that are actually hands-on. I'm not a big fan of boards with very fancy bios. I mean, it's nice to have smart people, but it's going, I want board members or partners that get their hands dirty, like that lean into the project. I've had companies where we've had boards where everything is, Monday morning quarterbacking. Oh, well, I saw this coming 6 months ago. It's like, then speak up, like, get engaged, like, or else get off the team. Like, we don't have time to figure this out. Like, I tell people, startups, especially early stage companies, it's not the time for on-the-job learning. Stick to your good at, know where you're weak, bring those people around, listen to them. That's another big thing, is not listening to the expertise that's being fed into you. Ultimately, yes, as a CEO, you got to make the call. But I've also seen CEOs where they get intimidated because people are giving them different advice, and it's not what they thought it should be, right? But guess what? It's their industry. Like, they're experts at it. They can save you headache, mistakes, loss of money, loss of time. So it's a couple of different things. It's the humility and working in a team environment and surrounding yourself with smart people that actually can get hands-on are critical.
And, speaking of hands-on, like, where do you see the biggest breakdown in most companies? I think I probably know, but I'd be curious of what you see of, like, the breakdown in, like, where are they weakest? And if they solve that piece of the puzzle most of the time, that is going to boost their valuation. I'm curious.
It's just two ways to answer it, right? I think one of the weakest, most, and it's the weakest link, right, that causes the problems. It's, if you look at equity, right? When you start talking about equity and going, where's my name on the cap table? How many shares do I have versus everybody else? And I've seen when money starts coming in, right, investors start then it validates it, right? Now all of a sudden the valuation's pegged. You got investment dollars to prove it. But then the issue is, and I also see kind of this, evil seeps in, right? They start doing math in their head, right? They start going, gosh, I'm worth such and such. You're like, no, you're not. Like, not until you have an exit. Like, just put that aside. And so I see people really get tripped up on what's my title and how much equity do I have. Now, it's important to have equity, but I've seen partnerships, and we have a client that we're dealing with right now where there was originally a three individuals that came together partnership, start talking about equity and ownership, boom, really kind of blew up the deal, but in a good way, because luckily the founder, the CEO who brought these folks in, saw what was happening and had to make a difficult call and had to really get them out, restructure the business around. Now he's got really good people around him and he's going to go at it. But it's going, you can shoot yourself in the foot just by greed, right? And it's just knowing that this may not be your last rodeo. There'll be others, but really knowing that it takes a team effort. I think the other part of the question was, what was the failure? Like, what's the biggest failure people see?
Yeah.
It's also knowing that when you do get that offer, right, it may not be exactly what you want. You got to realize that, you got to find common ground, right? In your mind, you should have figured out the valuation, how many shares you have, like how much you're giving up, all that use of funds. You have to have all that stuff. But it's if you get a counter offer from an investor and it's not exactly what you want, don't, get all puffed up and, leave the room and get all, angry, be like, I'm going to go find someone else. You may not get that other person. So seriously consider going, how bad do you want this? And will this person add value? So it's knowing that you need to be flexible on terms to some degree, because again, I've seen deals where they were offered a large chunk of money and they turned it down because they thought they were worth more. Guess what? Never happened. The company went bankrupt.
It's so interesting having been at this, Greg, 30 years. And so you're reminding me of so many different examples personally of some failures early on, and then also clients and, this sort of thing. And it's like, don't be penny wise and pound foolish, right? Like, what's one good connection that can open doors in certain commerce arenas? Like, for example, and I'll use this crazy example, but like, let's say, Oprah said, I'll invest, right? But the equity that she was going to contribute might be 50 grand where you wanted 5 million. Mm-hmm. But she would in trade open the door and say, yeah, I'll bring you on my network and I'll interview you. We'll do a, multiple interview series, or even one for that matter, to open that door. Well, what would that exposure be worth? So it's to your point of be flexible of, like what are the intangible value pieces, but also to your point, the adding value pieces that maybe aren't as easily seen, that are beyond just dollars. And that's as you're watching or listening right now, one of the things with Greg and a lot of our work is it goes beyond the money. It goes beyond the dollar. It goes beyond the transaction. And when you go beyond the transaction to focus on the impact, the value creation, like it's so much more. And that's what I love about what, Greg, that you do, is that you, again, are building value in someone's company by helping them refine processes, systems, marketing, sales, branding, business development, et cetera, along the way of building the value to create it to be more attractive and valuable. That's the ultimate business model. So by the way, I got a bunch more I want to go into with you, but I know I want to give you a chance, Greg, to share. Like, if people want to learn more about you, like, they're interested, they go, yeah, I'm looking for a way to get more funding, to have more, capital, raise capital, et cetera, and or go public or go, exit the business. Where can they go to learn more about you and, essentially understand what you have to offer?
Sure. No, happy to do that. PurimVentures.com. So it's PURIM as in Mary, Ventures.com. And I think we're the only one on the web with that domain. It's a 2,500-year-old name, but you go to the site, you'll see. I would definitely check us out. We put a lot of case studies out there, a lot of testimonials, but there's ways to contact us on the site. You'll see opportunities to either send us an email or even book a call. We'll talk to people. We have a screening process, but we'll definitely give people a first shot at a call. And even with some folks, we had I talked to a really nice lady just the other day where it wasn't necessarily a good fit for us. So I pointed her in a bunch of other directions of people that, could really help her out. So, if that's our goal, is like at a minimum, it'll be a worthwhile phone call.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a way to raise capital, to get funding, to get a step-by-step plan to be able to do that and get connected to a network where you can get access to potential equity, partnerships, incredible value, I encourage you, go to purimventures.com. That's purimventures.com. And it's a way for you to help avoid some of the, high-priced consultants in this space, bankers, and a whole lot more. So go to purimventures.com. It's somewhere here on the page as well. Make sure to go to purimventures.com. Now, Greg, as you've, been at this for 20 some years, again, you've got so many fascinating stories that, we've talked about over time what are, I've got a handful of pages of notes. Focus on what you're good at. Make sure to get clear on what the weak spots are and then fill in those gaps, which is pretty simple. But I hope as you're watching or listening right now, you slow yourself down to really understand the truth to that. And then surround yourself with people who will get dirty to help support you in the process. That don't fall in love with titles, don't fall in love with the amount of equity, fall in love with value that gets created or brought to the table in exchange for what you do, and be flexible. What are a couple other tips that you might recommend for people to apply as they, on the journey to get funding, grow their business, build their value, and more?
I think another big one is take ownership, right? Because raising capital, if you've never done it before, it's like eating the elephant, right? It could be overwhelming. That's one of the reasons why we do what we do with our mastermind and engaging, clients the way we do. It's just because there's a lot of details, a lot of nooks and crannies and data rooms and documents and finance. There's a lot to go through. One, take ownership of it. And I've made this mistake, right, in the past where I didn't know anything about the time around international commercial real estate, right? And so we were raising money on a big project overseas in the Caribbean. And so I hired some people, right? It was referred to me, right? But it was an investment banker, paid him good money. And guess what? Got zero out of it. And I had to provide all the information anyways. He's trying to regurgitate our story and he's got 20 other clients paying him to do the same thing. And so it's like throwing, mud against a wall. We didn't get the priority. He goes about this deep into your deal. Not all investment bankers are that way. I mean, we work with quite a few of them, but it's one of those things of you've got to take ownership of this. And if you're an entrepreneur or small business owner or want to do startups, want to do multiple businesses, learning this process, taking ownership, say working with us, or if you can find another group that does what we do, but learning this will pay dividends way into the future, because now you'll know how to talk to investors, you'll know how to sell your business, how to buy others, how to do other startups. And once you learn how to do this, especially if you're like the entrepreneurial thing and you want to do multiple companies, when you learn how to do this successfully, you get a lot of phone calls. People just find out where you're at and they want you on the next deal, right? Everybody, even commercial real estate, you have the person that finds it, you have the person that closes it, and then you have the person that finds the money. The person that finds the money gets invited back, and they usually get two bites of the apple. They get their commission and they get a piece of the equity. So it's a valuable skill. And I've worked with a lot of MBAs that they don't teach this at graduate schools, right? So it's an art form, it's a science, but just make sure you don't outsource this. So I've seen companies that have the money and they can afford. We have one client that's big in commercial real estate, or they're getting into commercial real estate. They've done other big profitable companies, but their first commercial real estate was their first one. It's a big one. And they outsourced it to people and they spent well over 6 figures making mistakes. And then they engaged us. We have their testimonies as on our website. John and Evelyn, you can check those guys out. But they knew it. They're smart enough to know that they didn't know what they didn't know. They surrounded themselves, and we helped them out. But it's really kind of just taking ownership of this thing and knowing that you can do it. You don't have to you don't even have to go to college. We've had people that raised money that no college education at all. It just takes step by step, bit by bit, put it together, and you look back within 4 to 8 weeks roughly, and your data room's done. You've accomplished things that you didn't think you could do. So you can do this. It's just having someone that will actually show you how to do it is the key.
And speaking of someone showing you how to do it, like what would it be worth for you to easily and effortlessly build a valuation of your business so that it made it more attractive and appealing to people who will give you money, get funding, investors, private investors, equity funds? And then what's it costing you not being as valuable as you could be, not being as profitable as you could be, not being as attractive as you could to bring the A team to you, right? And be surrounded with that A team who are willing to do both, get their hands dirty, take ownership, as well as drive the value, right? So if you want to learn more about the step-by-step approach that Greg and his team take, go to purimventures.com. That's purimventures.com. Somewhere on the site there, you'll find a button or a link or something to, book a consultation if you're ready for that, right? Because Greg can help you, his team can help you go deeper in a far easier way if you're willing to come to the table and take ownership of the process to make sure that you're growing and building your business successfully. Greg, something that come to mind as you were talking about, it's not something that's taught traditionally, right? It's an art and a science, right? There's call it the old archaic way of doing it. And then, your way of doing it is, again, very unique. And I would make the case that it's not available anywhere else in the world the way you do it out there. Talk about the old way, like the historic way that people have typically done it, and maybe some of the consequences of that. I'm curious your take on that.
Sure. No, happy to. So I guess the old way is you build a business plan, right? You can search online. What are the components of a business plan? And you start writing. And now you're 12, 15 pages into it, right? And that takes time. And then as soon as you hit print, it's dated, right? You go back. So it's just one of those things. And most people don't read them, right? Yeah. So it's, we work with summaries, pitch decks, agreements, financials, teams, strategy, adding all that stuff, right?
And I'm going to hit a stop time out here for a second. You said something really, I think, important as you're watching or listening right now. I hope you although Greg, because he's such an expert at this, he just said it so casually. I don't want you to become a casualty of casual. And so, because Greg knows this like the back of his hand, what did he just say? He said that building a business plan takes a lot of time. It takes, sometimes a lot of energy and weeks and months sometimes, and you're writing and creating. And most people don't read it. So if you're putting time into the wrong thing, Greg mentioned something earlier. What is it you don't know? You don't know. That actually, if you did know, would save you time, would save you money. And what's that worth to you? So you get it right up front and not waste that time, that energy on something that literally by the time you get it done is dated and obsolete in most cases, right? Like the example you just gave, Greg, of a business plan, right? So speak to that just a little bit, because I want to hopefully drive this home, because I find some people they get so hung up on getting their perfect business plan put together to put in front of funding or investors. And like I found similar to what you've shared, but I'd love you to say it from your perspective. When you say most people don't read, who are you talking about? Are you talking about the people who fund companies and the people who have equity company, or, the equity to give away? What speak to that?
Yeah, investors, at least the folks that we work with don't read business plans, right? The world's different now. It's shifted, right? It's going, answer the questions quickly, right? Get to the point. When we go through this process, and at the same time, I'm not saying a business plan is a bad idea. What I'm telling you is the way we do it is your pitch deck is also your business plan. It's also marketing collateral. It's also, part of your due diligence, right? So you go through the same mental exercises as you would. You're just not writing a 30-page document. Like it's a waste of time. So, and the other thing is going on the investment side, that we see 10, 15 deals a week, right? Family offices, which we work with, which are ultra high net worth families and high net worth individuals, they see more, right? They have teams that look at these things. So you may think you have the shiniest object in the room, but you're competing against a bunch of other really shiny objects. So you got to be able to grab their attention very, very quickly, get to the point, hit them where it's most interesting. At the same time, you're not trying to get them to cut a check because they just connected with you. You just want to bring them into the process, right? It's kind of like dating. Like you just don't go right to proposal, or else, she'll probably walk out of the room. So you walk through the process, how to kind of do the teaser process and get them interested and bring them through it. But, most people, to answer your question, the old school way is, I've seen people do this. They'll build a business plan. Like we've had clients that come to us just exhausted going, I got all this stuff. I'm like, well, we'll take pieces of it, but we're going to do something a little bit different. But they'll typically write a big private placement document, big business plan, spend $30,000, $40,000 with attorneys to get all the legal wrappers done. And then they go hop on a plane and go to New York, Boston, San Francisco, Austin, right? Where there's VCs, the venture capital. And because they've seen Shark Tank or they've seen shows and they're going, well, I got to go to venture. Well, guess what? Most pre-revenue early stage companies, they're not candidates for venture capital. Like most venture capital, you got to have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in revenue or EBITDA to even get their attention. Now, there are some VCs that do early stage stuff, but they still come with the VC terms, which can, if you don't know what you're doing,
very expensive.
It can be a very expensive lesson. So we predominantly work with family offices, high net worth individuals, angels, those types of folks in corporate M&A. Like some corporations come to us going, hey, we're looking for this, this, and this, so we can bring them those type of opportunities. But you can spend so much time barking up the wrong tree, and you can go out to Sand Hill Row, and if you got something that's cool, maybe they'll meet with you, but they won't give you any money. And they're not going to sign an NDA. Right? Because they can't, not because they're bad people. It's because if they sign an NDA with you and somebody else, and you've got, you're selling a really cool new way to comb your hair, right? But if you can't do that, then they can't look at other cool comb opportunities, right? So it's like they cannot sign NDAs until they're really into due diligence. So it's free intel for them, right? So you can be barking up the wrong tree and spending all the time and money in. They'll meet with you, they'll talk with you, they'll look at your stuff, but they won't invest. So it's knowing that you've got a window and you've got to move and talk to the right people with the right materials, with the right strategy, that can become a system, right? It's a teachable system. It's just trying to do it on your own can be, like you said, the old way could cost you 6 figures very, very quickly, and you still don't have an investor.
And if you're looking for a step-by-step plan to get funding, to avoid the high cost of, traditional consulting fees or, attorneys or bankers or these sorts of things, or having to hop on planes and barking up the wrong tree, then I encourage you, go check out what Greg and his company have put together at PurumVentures.com. That's PurumVentures.com. Greg, as we wind this down here today, what's something I should have asked you that I didn't get a chance to ask you yet that'd be valuable?
Gosh. And we can get into politics, but that'd probably be a whole nother. No. I'll get, maybe it's just what do we see from trends from an investing? Most people, if you watch the news, which, the only TV in the house is my daughter's. Like, we don't watch TV. We read it, so we'll go online and very, very careful about what we filter in. But if you were to watch the news, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, right, I think we all lived through the last 3 years. Can you really believe what you're hearing? But if you look at what the markets are doing, right? Oh, there's a recession. Oh, we're going to, all these things, which, some of it's real. But when you look at the world of direct investment, right? So outside of Wall Street, outside of banks, because, some banks that, got taken over, and some of them should have, if you look at really what they're doing. But most people think, I got to go to VC, I got to go to banks, Wall Street, whatever, I'm going to go public. It's like the world of direct investment, at least the world we play in, it's, again, these high net worth individuals, family offices, individuals like yourself that could cut, $100,000 checks and invest and take a stake in these companies and help provide, strategic guidance. That's a hockey stick if you really look for it. It's the activity is high. Investors want to do this. And so it's not just, hey, I've got some shiny object and, please invest in my deal. Like, don't approach an investor like you're a pauper, like you're begging, right? There's groups looking for deal flow. Like we have folks coming to us going, we want exclusive access to your deal flow, right? So it's going, they're there. It's just making sure that you look and smell and feel like the real thing. And that's what we help do. But the world of direct investment is done extremely well because they're usually the people cutting those checks are entrepreneurs who've made it. So it's a mentor thing for them. It's kind of a giving back thing. They want to stay in the game. So they're more likely to cut a check directly into a company and get a much better return than put money. They'll put money and they'll diversify and have stuff on Wall Street. I'm not saying they're not going to do that, but it's going that world. When I went to top business school, right, they didn't talk about that. It's kind of this area that nobody really discusses because it doesn't get the attention. But if you're in this realm that we play in, there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of companies that vying for attention of these type of investors. But I would encourage people going, get your stuff right. Don't wait. Like most people go, well, I got to wait. Time's not right, but you'll never have a right time. Like entrepreneurship, as you know, is extremely messy. Just go. Like even working with coaches, I worked with a couple different coaches. Like I hemmed and hawed and did all the analysis and due diligence. And it's just like, you'll always find a reason not to, right? It's just push yourself into the fire and go and run and you'll figure it out. Like, you look at some of the big names, Google, SpaceX, some of these big ones, they all started with somebody's idea and then angels put money in, right? And then they went for VC and then they went public, right? The people that got in early, it's higher risk, but the reward could be extremely good. So that's where these smart investors are looking to place strategic bets because they also want to help. So that's where, the encouragement I would like to get, your listeners is just do it. And whether it's with us or somebody else, just jump into it, but be coachable. Be very coachable and learn and absorb as much information as you can. And just don't wait for that perfect time because we don't know what's going to happen next year with an election year. Like world's kind of a crazy place. Just, go for it. And I even tell people that are maybe not even looking to raise capital at the time that maybe be listening to this is going, it still gets you in the right mindset, the right organization. This process will uncover a bunch of chinks in your armor to where you can just shore that stuff up. And so if you ever do need money, you're there. And it's much nicer to raise money when you don't need it, right? Then the terms flip. So, it's always good to plan for a rainy day and to surround yourself with good people that have pockets and can support your business and grow with you.
And speaking of that is, when is the best time to dig a well? Before you're thirsty or after you're thirsty? Probably before, right? Well, if you're looking for a way to set yourself up for funding, for equity, for valuation, for growth, and a network and a team effect that Greg can bring to you. Again, go learn more by checking out the info they've got available at PurumVentures.com. That's PurumVentures.com. And Greg, one last question as we wrap up. As you think of today's conversation, our talk today, like what are a couple things you hope our viewers, our listeners take away from our conversation or action steps?
Yeah, that you can do this. It doesn't matter your background, right? It's all persistence and taking one step in front of the next, right? It's you can do it. You can learn this thing. Think about riding a bike. Like, you didn't know how to ride a bike when a bike was put in front of you. Someone probably put you on it and walked you along the way. Next thing you know, you're riding bikes, right? So it's the same thing, so this is a definitely a valuable skill to know, especially in this day and age, where banks aren't really lending, and you got to have, assets and revenue for a bank to even consider that. Now that's a good source of capital, but early on, this is a very good place to learn and to play and to work. But my thing was just you can do this, have the confidence that you can, and again, surround yourself with good advisors and good people that can help you get there. And anything is possible. It really is. It's not a cliche, and it sounds kind of cliche-ish, but you can. This is hard work. And the other thing too is, as a business, this is if you work with us, it's an investment in your business, right? And like you said, what's the ROI, right? Don't only think about what you have to spend to get there. Think about the opportunity cost. Like if you don't get there, right? I tell clients, yeah, they got to, we're not for free, right? But we're very reasonable, and we work with a lot of different clients. But it's going, you can go back, and we have all this stuff that's public domain. You can go on our website, check us out, because what people have paid to work with us and what they get back in 30, 60, 90 days, that's what keeps us. That's why we keep this mastermind thing going, because it's a good feeder for us, but it's just seeing the value that's created and seeing people that when that light goes on, or that they flip the switch and all of a sudden they have that aha moment of, yeah, I can do this. Like, you see them stand taller, more, it's just cool to see that transformation in people. So, I guess the takeaway is you can do it, learn it, find a good mentor, good coach, and just stick with it. And persistence wins. I mean, you may have to kiss a lot of frogs to get, to that ideal investor, but it's going to happen. And there's lots of them. And that's part of what we do is once we figure out the person's deal, we look at throughout our group and then our entire network, and it blows people's minds. Because I've done this in a couple of our mastermind calls where I'll be like, okay, you're in Detroit. I pull everything up and they're just like, can't believe. I'm like, yeah, you've got 15 different organizations you can go after. Now you're ready. And also don't do it too soon. The issue is I've seen people get ahead of themselves and go want to talk to an investor, and they don't have their stuff in order. And once you have that first impression that's out there and you kind of look like you're shooting from the hip and you got some idea, don't just write their name down and follow up with them later, but get your stuff done. And we're a type of crew that we don't say, hey, let's go build all this stuff and then you go talk. No, we're a team where we change the tires on the car as it's moving, but we want people out talking to investors as soon as possible, but not too soon, because that's when you can really kind of poison your own well. And it's really difficult going back if you've done that.
And that's the beauty of this. I mean, I almost feel like this should be required of anybody starting a business to go through the process that you have, because it just makes you a better entrepreneur. It helps you become better at marketing, better at sales, better at business development, better systems, right? And you can do it in such a concise way, the way you guys have packaged this up and systematized it step by step, without the, super high, crazy, things that are out there. And by the way, as you're watching or listening, if you want to learn more, if you want to check out what Greg's and his team can do for you, go to purimventures.com, purimventures.com. I did think of another couple of questions, Greg, regarding, you brought up the transformation that people go through. And, you've got a network effect of, what I would estimate to be thousands and thousands of people all over the country, or maybe even the world, with what you do. But you and your wife has created this amazing lifestyle. Your daughter, Naraya, is a part of your business in some cool ways, and you're able to teach her through this. Like, if you were to thank your wife, today for how she's shown up, I just want to get into, I'm curious about the personal side of things. If you were to thank her for what she's done for allowing you to be your best self, what would you turn to your wife today and say, thank you, honey, for fill in the blank? What would that be?
All right, you get me all choked up. Really believing when you didn't believe, right? Seeing the core of what, because we've been dating since college. Like, I was a senior, she was a year older. She's, and so we've been together for a long time. So she's been through every startup, right? So she's seen everything. So, and, people went through COVID, right? And we were in the Caribbean, we had an international business. I guess the big thank you would be believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, right? And that's where a mentor, a coach, gets you over the hump. And so it was, when we had exited from an orthopedics company back in 2010, I'm like, I felt led, God directed our steps into a certain path. And then, it was time to step down and move on. And I didn't have a plan, right? And it was her idea of, hey, you've got a lot of people coming to you now that you're a free agent, start your own firm. Like, this is when we do our own firm. And that's how Purim was born. There's a significance. The name goes back to the book Esther. There's a lot of symbolism behind, because we always found ourselves in the middle between CEOs and investors, right? So a lot of symbolism in the name. And then just going through COVID, right? It was not a fun time. planes weren't flying. Everybody was like, we all thought the world was going to end. It's crazy, right? But it's going, we saw one of our businesses just bleed out. And no matter how much passion, the good we're trying to do is just, you just can't swim upstream. So it's pretty debilitating mentally, and to be able to pick yourself back up and have someone that believes in you and says, look, you've got a ton of value to bring to people. And it was really her idea to open up this mastermind, to open up what we do, because we're very private. Like for 10 years, we did zero marketing. We had a one-page website with a logo and a contact. That was it. And we're branding experts, right? So go figure that one out. But it was her idea to say, look, you've done this, teach people this. And I was like, I just wasn't the right place. And it was one of those things where, we did a little pilot. Again, that's where I did all my analysis paralysis and trying to interview all these different coaches, because I didn't know anything about Facebook or ads or, because it's not the world we play in, and hired a coach and took the plunge and just kind of followed the process, kind of resisted it, to be honest with you. And then look where we're at today. I mean, the company, we've grown 4X, and we've picked up numerous different companies. And it's one of the things where when you're at your kind of your lowest, or just in a difficult spot, to have a coach, a mentor, a spouse that believes in you, they can really pick you up out of the mire and drag you through it. I mean, that's a blessing. So, she gets a lot of the credit for where we're at today, because it was the vision and the confidence, and, here we are. So, very fortunate to have her by my side.
And thank you for giving us a personal glimpse into your, family side of what you do. And you have a family business. And if you're looking for a way to work with, some amazing people and have amazing people working with and for you, and you want to learn more, then go check out PurimVentures.com. The links are on the page. If you're listening right now, if you're watching, it's probably somewhere around me. Or I don't know if it's over here, down here, up here, wherever it is. Click the link. Go to PurimVentures.com, learn more about Greg, his team, his process to help you get funding without the typical expensive fees that go with brokers and bankers and all these sorts of attorneys and such like that. And also tap into this new resource instead of the old, outdated, traditional way that, can be quite expensive and laborious. You can have something that's far more agile and far more valuable to you, especially if you're an emerging company today. So go check out Purim Ventures. He's Greg Downey. I'm Dan Kuschell. Thanks for being with us today. Seize the day. Make it a great week. We'll see you next time on another episode Around the Corner. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GrowthToFreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day? Or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com.
Hey, it's Dan Kuschell. Click the buttons over here on the left. You can watch these other couple videos, as well as make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can get access to the latest insights, strategies, and wisdom, giving you more clarity, confidence, and direction for exponential business growth. Hit the button now.